в значительной степени тот уровень благосостояния, который достигнут в бывших колониальных державах, он основан на ограблении Африки.
The announcement hit Africa and Europe like a thunderclap. Niger, long treated as a forgotten corner of the continent, declared that it had signed a landmark agreement with Russia's Rosatom to build its first nuclear power plant. On paper, it looked like another infrastructure deal. In reality, it was nothing less than a rupture in the balance of power. A country that had its uranium stripped away for decades, fueling foreign lights while its own people sat in darkness, was now determined to turn that same uranium into power for itself. This was about more than energy. It was about sovereignty, dignity, and defiance. In Niger, where fewer than 1 in 5 people have access to electricity, the promise of a domestic nuclear plant feels revolutionary. For the first time, uranium would not be mined only to light up Parisian boulevards. It would light up Nigerian homes. The symbolism could not be clearer. Niger is rewriting its destiny, and Russia has handed it the pen. Rosatom's package is ambitious. It is not just the construction of a plant but the building of an entire nuclear ecosystem. Beyond energy, it includes research reactors, nuclear medicine facilities, and programs to train young Nigerian scientists and engineers. Imagine a Niger where cancer is treated with isotopes produced in domestic labs, or where experiments once only possible in Europe are carried out by Niger's own experts. That is the vision Moscow is offering, and in a country eager to break free from Western dominance, it resonates deeply. The timing makes it even more striking. Niger's economy is suffocating under sanctions imposed after the 2023 coup. Borders have been shut, aid suspended, and fuel prices spiral out of control. Blackouts are routine. Against this backdrop, the nuclear deal looks like a defiant punch through the walls of isolation. If the West closes its doors, Niger will open new ones. Global reactions have been swift. In Moscow, the deal was hailed as evidence that Russia's Africa strategy is working. In Paris, it triggered alarm. This was not just Niger buying Russian technology. It was Niger stripping France of one of its deepest sources of leverage in the Sahel. Critics warn Niger is trading one dependency for another, but for many Africans that argument feels hollow. Dependency has always been there, but under France it came without dignity, without transfer of technology, and without tangible benefits. The symbolism of the deal reverberates across the Sahel, where Mali and Burkina Faso have already broken with France. By choosing nuclear power, Niger is not just breaking with its past of exploitation, but leaping into a future that many thought was impossible for one of the world's poorest nations. This is why the story has shaken so many assumptions. It destroys the old stereotype that Africa can only export raw materials while others dictate its development. To understand the magnitude of this deal, we must return to Niger's history with France. For over half a century, Niger was not merely a supplier of uranium. It was France's lifeline. Nearly 70% of French electricity comes from nuclear energy, but much of the uranium feeding those reactors came from Niger's desert mines. And yet the arrangement was never equal. French state-owned companies, especially Orano, secured rights to buy uranium at prices far below market value. These agreements, reinforced by aid packages and diplomatic pressure, left Niger with no real power to renegotiate. The profits flowed north while Niger remained among the world's poorest. Communities living near the mines in Arlit and Akakan bore the scars. Radioactive dust and contaminated water poisoned the environment. Reports showed rising rates of respiratory illnesses, but local hospitals lacked even basic resources. Meanwhile, uranium from beneath their soil illuminated French homes, while their own children did homework by candlelight. Why didn't Niger walk away earlier? The answer lies in the architecture of dependency. France tied mining contracts to aid, loans, and diplomatic recognition. Any attempt to resist was met with threats of retaliation, sanctions, or isolation through international institutions dominated by Western powers. Uranium became a chain that bound Niger tightly to France. But this exploitation was not just economic. It was psychological. France insisted that Niger lacked the capacity to manage uranium itself, and this narrative seeped into the international system. The myth that Niger was too poor, too unstable, too fragile to chart its own path became a justification for keeping it locked out of technological development. By the early 2000s, frustration was boiling over. Activists, unions, and communities began demanding why their land enriched Paris while they stayed in poverty. Protests erupted in mining towns. France offered token reforms and symbolic gestures, but the exploitative structure never changed. It was colonialism dressed up in contracts and cooperation agreements. This is why recent events, nationalizing French-operated mines, expelling French troops, and now partnering with Russia, have sent shockwaves through Paris. These are not small shifts. They are a wholesale rejection of France's economic empire in the Sahel. For Niger, it is not just about electricity. It is about confronting generations of humiliation. Yet a critical question remains: what exactly is Russia offering in return? Can Niger avoid falling into a new dependency? Rosatom's Peaceful Atom Initiative aims to avoid the extraction-first model of France. Instead of carting uranium away, Russia promises to embed nuclear infrastructure inside Niger. At the core is the construction of Niger's first nuclear power plant. But alongside it, Rosatom proposes research reactors, nuclear medicine facilities, and training programs. Unlike France's model, which exported uranium but withheld technology, Russia promises to cultivate scientific capacity within Niger. Electricity is the first promise. Niger is one of the most energy-starved nations in the world. Rural villages are off-grid, industries paralyzed by blackouts, and households forced to rely on kerosene or firewood. A nuclear plant could stabilize the grid and finally provide the reliable baseload energy necessary for industrial growth. That means factories that can run, hospitals that can operate, and schools that can function with uninterrupted power. Then comes research. Small research reactors would allow Niger to study its own uranium and develop nuclear expertise at home. For decades, Niger was excluded from that process, forced to ship raw material abroad and buy back knowledge secondhand. That cycle may finally be broken. The medical applications are equally transformative. Nuclear medicine has become central to cancer treatment and diagnostic imaging worldwide. In Niger, where healthcare infrastructure is fragile and advanced treatment often requires expensive travel abroad, the introduction of nuclear medicine could save lives. Rosatom's plan includes isotopes for cancer detection and therapy, tools that could change healthcare across the country. Perhaps most importantly, Russia promises investment in people. Scholarships, internships, and training programs will build a generation of Nigerian engineers, doctors, and scientists. France never offers such investment in human capital. For Niger's youth who face unemployment and lack of opportunities, the chance to master advanced technology is not just appealing. It is empowering. Of course, the challenges are immense. Nuclear energy demands strong regulatory bodies, independent oversight, and rigorous safety standards, none of which Niger currently has. Financing remains daunting, with nuclear projects costing billions. Security risks loom large in a country facing insurgency and instability. Yet Rosatom's pitch acknowledges these obstacles, promising not just equipment but institutional support. The deal must also be seen in the broader geopolitical context. Across the Sahel, Western dominance is collapsing. France has been expelled from Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. The United States is losing influence as well. Into this vacuum step Russia, China, Turkey, and others, each eager to play a role in Africa's future. For Paris, the humiliation is deep. France built its global prestige on nuclear energy, but that independence rested on Nigerian uranium. Now Niger is not only reclaiming its uranium but using Russia, France's geopolitical rival, to help transform it into domestic energy. The symbolism is devastating. The colony that once fueled the colonizer has invited another power to build what France never allowed. For Washington and Brussels, the implications are equally troubling. The West long presented itself as Africa's indispensable partner. Sanctions after the 2023 coup were supposed to isolate Niger's rulers. Instead, they pushed Niger toward Russia. The nuclear deal shows that Africa has alternatives. If one partner shuts its doors, another opens theirs. Within Africa, the ripple effects are even larger. Niger is part of the Sahel alliance with Mali and Burkina Faso, a bloc openly rejecting French influence and asserting sovereignty over natural resources. The nuclear deal strengthens this alliance, offering a model of resource use that adds value domestically instead of exporting raw wealth. This is not just an energy project. It is an alignment. Niger is positioning itself with those willing to defy sanctions, reject old hierarchies, and pursue multipolar partnerships. For Russia, it expands influence in Africa. For Niger, it cements a role as a pioneer in redefining sovereignty. The question is whether this gamble will bring genuine independence or entangle Niger in new forms of dependency. Energy sovereignty is not just about keeping the lights on. It is about breaking the cycle in which Africa exports raw materials cheaply, imports finished goods at inflated prices, and relies on foreign aid to fill the gaps. Nuclear power, if managed properly, offers a path out of that cycle. The symbolism matters as much as the technology. For decades, Africans were told they were not ready for nuclear power, not capable of managing advanced systems, not responsible enough to wield such technology. By signing this deal, Niger is rejecting that narrative outright. It is saying Africa can and will take control of its future. The risks are real. Financing, security, and governance are formidable obstacles. But sovereignty always carries risks. For Niger, the choice is clear: to stop being a passive supplier of raw wealth and to start building power at home. The nuclear plant has yet to be built. Years may pass before its benefits are seen. But the revolution has already begun in the realm of ideas. Uranium, once the symbol of exploitation, is being transformed into a tool of pride, ambition, and possibility. The question now is not whether Africa can achieve energy sovereignty. The question is how soon others will follow Niger's lead, and whether the world is ready for an Africa that powers itself.